Welcome back to another episode of the Experts in Fire podcast. I'm your host, Mike Vennard, and with me today is Randy Mowry. Today's episode is Tips to Help Your Client Choose the Right Gas Fire Pit. Let's get into it. Hey, Randy, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
I am living large and in charge, baby. It's Friday. It's beautiful outside. You couldn't ask for better. Let's get into this episode here. We are going to talk about some tips to help your client choose the right gas fire pit. And Randy, I know you talk with folks all day long. You have a lot of contractors and landscape architects that you work with. When you hear, hey, I'm looking for a fire pit, typically you're talking to the person who is in turn talking to the client. You may not necessarily be talking directly to the client. So what are some tips that you could share with our pros in how to help them walk through with the client, you know, what they need and all those types of things, so that when they turn and call you, they have a good idea, and then you can take that information and direct them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a great question, and in choosing the right fire pit is key. We want to make sure that we get the right product for what they're trying to accomplish. You know, what the big scheme of things and how they envision their project, whether it be commercial or residential. And you know, speaking with a contractor or homeowner, I always ask about like the project and where's it going to be located at. Are they building a patio with a roof on it? Is there going to be something overhead, or are they building it out in the middle of their yard and they have some trees? So it's all about location first, kind of like getting a feel for where it's going on the property itself, Mike.
That's great. And I think we've had episodes, with talking about trees overhead and roofs overhead, because once you start talking a roof overhead, even if it's a pergola or something of that nature, all of a sudden you turn into a specific, I don't want to say style, maybe a specific manufacturer who has the proper clearances for you to be able to do that. And then I think we've talked about this before, but it's very important for the pro to know, or the architect or the landscape pro to know, what's the future hold.
Yeah, absolutely. Where it's going. Safety is always a big concern with anything that we do. And that's why these questions asked on the front end, as far as the location, is where it's going. Is there going to be a roof, or is somebody building like a screened in porch? There's a lot of different safety concerns that are going to follow each application, Mike.
And Randy, we're both homeowners, so we know if you put all of the projects on my list and said, here, you got to do them all this year. Number one, I don't have enough time. I have a job. Number two, I don't have the money to do all of those projects, right? So knowing what the future holds in terms of, hey, is a part of the vision to screen this area in? If it is, and we see a lot of really nice, they're like outdoor additions.
Correct.
People are adding roofs onto their house that project out into the yard, and then it's all open. It's gorgeous. And we have a solution for you there. But if you plan on enclosing that, it might be a different solution. So look to the future as well.
Yeah, a different conversation at that point. Absolutely. Once we kind of know where it's going to be at, then it's what type of fuel are we using? Are we using natural gas or propane? If we're using propane, is it going to be hard piped off of the main tank that supplies the house, or is this going to be more of a portable, like 20-pound tank that's used for a barbecue grill? Because that's real important as well, because it's going to drive to a certain type of product, Mike.
Natural gas has its limitations, and it also has no limits, right? Depending on what the homeowner wants to do. But what we don't want to happen is, we're using natural gas on this 250,000 BTU fire pit we're looking at. Well, you're running a new line for that then. So natural gas, important to know. And then same thing with propane, same scenario. We're just going to use a 20-pound tank to run this 250,000 BTU. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. So let's have a conversation.
Exactly. So there's a product for everything. So we want to make sure that we get the right one in the right place. And then there's also, to kind of going back to location, is somebody building a fire pit? Maybe they're building their own fire pit. They're doing a bunch of landscape work, putting a pool in, and they want the landscaper to use the same stone, so they're just gonna build this fire pit, and they may just need the burner components from us, Mike. So we kind of get into that a little bit more in depth as well.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with unfinished fire pits as well, so we can help in that way depending on what the client wants. We can definitely help point them in a direction when you're going to build that fire pit yourself. So there are a lot of options. And what's funny is, Randy, we talk a lot at Woodland about, setting proper expectations. And you and I have been doing this for a long time, but it's fun watching the new folks go through the process of learning how to work with a client, because when it comes to that, we want to make sure we're setting proper expectations. So these questions that you're asking, these are the questions that we would ask, so that we don't have that customer who comes in and they're all excited to buy that 250,000 BTU fire pit. It's going to be the biggest and the baddest. And we go, heck yeah, I can get you that. And because we do, we sell those, right? Just to find out 35 minutes into the conversation, you got no way to get the fuel that you need to this thing to actually give it the 250,000 BTUs, right? So when we share these questions to our pros out there who are listening, we're really taking a lot of our pain that we've lived through to go, oh no, let us help you avoid, because there's nothing worse than a homeowner who is so excited about their backyard, and then all of a sudden you start telling them, yeah, well, actually, no. And it turns into well, maybe we won't even do a fire pit.
Right.
Because,
yes.
They went from such a high to a low. So helping guide your client and your customer, this is good stuff here. So, where will it be located? What type of gas will be there, natural or propane? And then are you building the fire pit and just need the burner parts? So these are all things that we're going to want to know. And these are things that you're going to be able to ask your client, do you want it to match the backyard, or do you want something new and unique? What else you got, Randy?
For example, if they are building their own fire pit, the next question really becomes, is the gas line ran? Which kind of alludes to some of those things you were mentioning there. Is if the gas lines are already ran, then we're going to be limited to what the supply line is that's already in place, whether they've hard piped propane from the main house or natural gas. If they've ran at 100 feet and they only have 50,000 BTUs at the fire pit, not 250,000 as they were hoping for. And this goes for commercial as well. I've seen it where gas lines were undersized on a commercial project, and the product that was spec'd overall months ago is not going to work when they call. So that's real important too. We want to make sure that the gas lines, if they are ran, what's available. If they're not run, fantastic, because now we're on the front end. And then that becomes, turnkey. Do they want that turnkey style of fire pit? Do they just want to buy something, set it in place? Turnkey fire pit could be, Mike, a dining table. That kind of goes back to where it's going to be located at. And now we're getting into what style does somebody want? What style is the contractor's client looking at? Do they want like a high top style dining table, or do they want round fire bowl, square, rectangle? So we get into that part of it. Now we're getting into more of the design aspect of it, the shape of it. I'm working with a local designer that I've met at our facility and brought the couple in because they have specific furniture, like a U-shaped style furniture that they're working with, and they have a very specific kind of look, shape, and the size. And, we went through quite a few different options, and we've narrowed it down to what's going to work best with their footprint and with the furniture. That's part of the style part of it. So it's not just that, I want a 60-inch rectangle style fire pit. I always ask them based on like the furniture, think about the furniture and walking space that's going to be around it, because maybe a 48-inch long fire table is actually going to work better style wise and placement wise for the footprint that they have. And so a really good way to do that too is, and I have a lot of clients that will do this, is get a piece of cardboard or some paper out there and just lay it out, or some chalk if it's on concrete, just and kind of play with some of those shapes and sizes and things like that, so it makes sense that you can get around these fire pits walking if you're getting up and out of a chair. So that's all about style, Mike, and those are all questions that we get into as far as kind of narrowing down the style that they want to use.
There's so much to it when you start talking about gas fire pits. And when it comes to style, Randy, it's where most people start.
It is.
They're looking for a style, and then we usually have to dig into the nitty-gritty of the specs and where's it going to go and how many BTUs, do you have gas line running, all that stuff. But I tell you what, it is fantastic in comparison to 7, 8, 9 years ago. The outdoor selection was pretty Now the options are, concrete, aluminum, steel. You have so many different options nowadays. You can even change the tops based on the manufacturer that you're going with. So there's so much cool stuff going on out there. Not to mention height. Do you want shed height? Do you want pub height?
Right, exactly. The options are they're just so unlimited these days. And then Woodland Direct, we do so many customs. I have several different custom quotes right now. I'm working on a 8-foot diameter tiered custom burner system for a winery. So it's really unlimited, but there's definitely a fire feature for every application. We just have to work through the questions and choosing the right one for the right location for you.
You have fire-related questions, and we have answers. You can email us your questions at podcast@woodlanddirect.com or give us a call at 586-221-3638. We would love to be able to answer them right here on the Experts in Fire podcast. So, once they know that, I'm looking for, and you've got just about everything covered here, right? The style, do I want to build it myself or just buy something else? So that kind of is going to help determine the style. What kind of gas am I going to be using? And then where's it going to go? It sounds like I've got a fire pit, right?
Yeah, pretty much, except for now, the last thing is how we want to operate it. As far as operation goes, how do we want to turn this thing on? How do we want to turn this thing off, Mike? That could be something as simple as, match light, where somebody is turning the gas supply on with a key valve and they're using like a barbecue lighter to light it. That's more residential. On a commercial application, multifamily properties, restaurants, hotels, it's going to be basically one specific. It's going to be an electronic ignition, and it's going to have a safety valve in it. And I'll kind of work down my way down through that. So match light is very basic. Like I said, you turn the gas supply on. You'll have a key valve on the side of your fire pit, whether it's a turnkey style or a site-built fire pit, and you just need burner parts. Okay, then you move into what they have is your push button start. It's just like think of you got like a little push button igniter for a barbecue grill. It's just a little sparker. Just has a couple wire leads. It's battery operated. It has a little sparker to it for natural gas. You can get those up to a certain BTU and just hit that little sparker and it will ignite the burner. Not available for propane use, but for natural gas, you can get that. And then you get into a push button start with a safety valve. And the safety valve is a flame sensing valve that if for some reason that burner blows out, it actually will shut the gas supply off to that fire pit, Mike. And that will be available to a certain BTU range, available for natural gas and propane. And when we get into these safety valves, these are important to keep in mind for if you have kids, or in a case like you and I, where we have adult kids that may use our fire pits when we're not home, possibly. Just that safety part of it, knowing that if for some reason it's unattended, they walk away from it and that burner blows out from a high wind, it shuts that gas supply off, Mike.
And let's be honest, Randy, almost everyone is building that backyard to entertain, to, have a good time. And many times, not all the time, but many times alcohol is going to be involved, and you just forget things. And it's okay. It's okay if you have the right safety features in place, right? So now you can rest assured, you can entertain, have some glasses of wine, enjoy, and know that at the end of the day, you made safety first. Therefore, you have nothing to even think about. And that's where folks tend to try and cut corners is, well, I'll remember. Nah, you won't. I guarantee it, because your backyard is going to be so beautiful that you're just going to enjoy yourself. Take the time on the front end to make sure you make safety first. Now, I know we're talking to our pros here. I'm giving you the pitch to give to your homeowners. Take the time, because you want to enjoy your night without having to think about what happens if the wind starts to blow and this thing blows out. I better turn it off, right? So, yeah, it's good stuff, Randy. So we've got the push button and the push button with a valve.
And then the last one is it's a full electronic ignition system. And these are available. So if we're inside of 10 feet of water, like a pool area, for example, there's a 12-volt system for that. And then there's a 24-volt system, and then you have your 110 volts. So there's 3 variations. These are full electronic, so they are going to require some type of electricity, bringing in an electrician to make all these connections. The benefit of the electronic ignition system for a homeowner, we'll say, is if they're putting in a smart home system or a pool management system, the electricians can tie to that, where they can have an app on their phone that through their pool system, they hit a button and their fire pit turns on. In the same scenario from a safety standpoint, is these have the safety valve. So typically with an electronic ignition, Mike, if the burner blows out, the system will attempt to reignite itself in a series of 3 times typically. If it fails to ignite after 3 tries, it shuts the system down. So it is another like fail-safe, shuts that gas supply down. It's just the electronics for on the residential side, not only from the safety part of it, but you have some automation systems that are available. And you can also, even at home, and this is typical for a commercial property, but you could use these very easily at a home application, is you can put them on a switch. You just flip the switch on and off. You can put it on a timer, a 2 hour, 1 hour, 2 hour, 12-hour timer. It's just a simple spring timer. I always like to tell people, think of back in the day and you went to the hotel and you went in the bathroom and it had this cool little timer and the heat lamp turned on and it shut off. Same type of thing. It's just a simple spring timer. You remember those?
Randy, you're old. I do remember those.
But yeah, it's just a simple spring timer is all it is. And it will just time out on its own. But yeah, so the electronic is definitely a fantastic way to go as well. You have different options of being able to control that.
Those are some great options there. And again, safety first, folks, as you think about it, as you consider it, consider a valve, a safety valve of some sort, just to make sure that you keep everything and everyone safe. And you can take that out of your mind. I can tell you, the electronic system, so I burn nothing but wood. I was raised on wood. I love wood. I love watching wood. I love throwing more wood on the fire. I love trying to predict the wind when I have a wood burning fire and kind of play with the logs around the... It's like my thing around a fire pit. You know what I mean? And Randy, you and I we've sat around the fire pit up in my cabin, and it's like, okay, if I throw this monster log on there and surround it with other logs, then it's going to burn. It's nerdy stuff for us.
Right.
But this year I am going to start putting in some gas units around the backyard here as I build the patio. And I got to tell you, I'm just not interested in lighting a match or pushing a little barbecue click, click, clicker, man. I think I'm going to go electronic.
With my move and my new fire pit, mine has a safety valve on it. It's a flame sensing sparker battery operated, but it has a flame sensing valve on it. And just because, it's safety, if I walk away, but I have like this big open area that it is kind of breezy in some cases. And if that wind comes through and maybe I'm inside cooking or something like that, and it blows it out, I want to know that it's going to shut off, because on my property, I'm using propane. And so I definitely want to make sure that thing goes off and someone just doesn't go out there and try to just relight, oh, the burner's out, and just try to relight it while that gas is flowing. We don't want that.
Exactly. That's one scenario of so many that could happen. You're absolutely right. So for everyone who's listening, and especially our landscape pros, that means we're incorporating electricians into the mix. It means we're incorporating plumbing trades into the mix as well. And we work well with them. We can get you BTUs. We can get you the electrical that you're going to need to run, the specs on that type of stuff, so you can work with those that you work with and make sure that you get the best experience in that backyard for your client. So I say it's pretty easy. It's not. It's pretty complex, but for us, we've been doing it for so long that it's just setting the proper expectation so everybody knows what's going to need to happen in order to make that dream come true. If you are listening to this podcast and you have questions or you have concerns with something we may have said, please reach out to us and let us know. We would love to hear from you. And as always, Randy, thank you so much, brother, for taking the time away from your day. You could be selling stuff right now, but instead, you're helping people.
My pleasure.
And to everyone out there, thank you for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, have a great weekend. Join us next time for how to convert your propane fire pit to natural gas. We'll see you then.